This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, and with that, I think we can get started. Christy, are you Christy? Are you also a delegate?
Yeah, I'm with Delegate Guzman. She'll be here in just a second. She's just coming from the work meeting.
Okay, fine. Well, we'll do a few other announcements first. I'm hoping that for our next meeting we'll invite the two school board candidates. I just want to remind everybody that we do have a contested school board nomination endorsement process, and there will be a in-person firehouse primary in May. All the other candidates that you're going to hear from today, except for Barbara, will be in a primary in June, and so we're going to have a contested primary for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general in June, and then that June ballot could potentially also contain county board and so on. The state party voted that all delegate races, if they are contested, be resolved by primary rather than by caucus, but we're not allowed to hold a school board caucus, a school board primary, so we do that by firehouse primary or unassembled caucus. Somebody is
really bad echo.
I think that noise is coming from Maureen Markham's thing because she isn't muted. Yeah, noise.
Yes. So I will try to mute Maureen Markham here.
Bob,
okay.
To go back to Mark's point, can we identify caller 01?
I've tried that. If you are on the phone, could you please say your name? We've got Robert, but we're missing caller 01. Caller 01, could you just say your name into the phone?
And the point being, if they don't, not that we're discussing state secrets, but I would exclude them.
Is that the consensus?
We're being recorded, so anyone can watch us later. I can tell you that I had someone come into my Mark's monthly meetup back in January and disrupt it. So that's.
I'll exclude them as soon as any disruption at all occurs. I promise I'll rule with a iron fist. I almost sound like a house speaker or something. Okay, so let's get started. It's my great pleasure to first call upon Delegate Elizabeth Guzman, who I believe has been active in the political scene since 2015 and is seeking the office of Lieutenant Governor. Delegate Guzman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you so much, Arlington Senior Democrats, for having me this afternoon. I am Elizabeth Guzman, and I proudly represent the 31st District in the House of Delegates, which includes parts of Prince William County, which is the largest majority-minority county in Virginia, and Fauquier County, which is more red and rural. I am a social worker, a public administrator, a union sister, your DNC member, a mother to 4 children, an immigrant, and a fighter for working people and progressive values. And I'm very excited to be here with you today as I talk about my bid to become the first woman to serve as your next Lieutenant Governor. And I will be remiss if I don't recognize Senator Barbara Favola for her fight for paid sick days. We're working for this for a few years, so thank you for your leadership, Senator. I will be remiss if I don't mention and acknowledge your presence here. And I wanted to make sure to share with you a little bit about my story. When I first came to this country with $300 and a little girl, I worked 3 minimum wage jobs to afford a 1-bedroom apartment. I put myself through Northern Virginia Community College, and I eventually earned 2 master's degrees while I raised my children and worked full-time. I worked in the administration of Fairfax County Public Schools for a few years. Then I worked for the Office for Children for Fairfax County government. And later I built a career as a social worker, protecting children from neglect and abuse. I'm currently working for the City of Alexandria Department of Human Services, as this legislative job is only part-time. In the City of Alexandria, I oversee a $20 million budget for a 200-person operations staff, serving some of our most vulnerable populations, including seniors struggling with food insecurity and people with substance abuse disorders. I first became engaged in politics as an activist back in 2006, when Corey Stewart was trying to bring the 287G program to Prince William County, which deputizes local law enforcement officers to act as agents of ICE. It is a program that leads to racial profiling of the Latinx community. But I never thought I would run for office until Hillary lost in 2016. My son, who was 9 years old at the time, told me that we have to return to Peru because Donald Trump did not like people who spoke Spanish. So I filed to run for the House of Delegates so that I could show my son that Virginia is his home and that Guzman is an American name. And I will not name names, but there were some people who asked, how do you think you can do this? How are you going to do this with this job, with your full-time job and your kids? How are you going to raise $1 million? And I did it, not once, but twice. And I did not let that bother me, because as a brown woman, as an immigrant with an accent, I'm used to being underestimated. But there are some good things about being underestimated. It forces you to work harder and be better, because the bar is higher. And then when you exceed people's expectations, they are like, wow, I did not see that coming. So I defeated a 16-year Republican incumbent, whom I beat by 9 points. He did not see that coming either. Shortly after that, I was elected in 2017, and I was elected as the chair of the class of 2017, which was the most diverse slate of delegates in Virginia's history. And Nancy Pelosi invited me to give the Spanish response to Donald Trump's State of the Union address. It was such an honor to go to the Capitol, and I've never been more proud to be an American and to represent Virginia. I am running for lieutenant governor because we need an effective legislator who can ensure that pro-worker, pro-education, and pro-environment legislation passed by the House makes it out of the Senate. During my 4 years in the legislature, I passed 24 bills and championed many more in the areas of healthcare, education, the environment, criminal justice reform, and workers' rights. And I look at every issue through the lens of racial and social justice. That's why I've taken environmental justice fights outside of my district. For example, I've joined the Brown Grove community, which is a 150-year-old Black community in Hanover County, in their fight against the proposed Wegmans distribution center that will destroy their years of legacy. I've also supported the Union Hill neighborhood, which is a historically Black community in Buckingham County, in their fight against a potential gold mine that could pollute the James River water from Appomattox to Fairfax County. I was the patron of the collective bargaining bill, and I recently passed a bill to get our home health care workers paid sick days. During my time in the legislature, I've been known as a coalition builder because I know how to bring people together to get things done. And you can say you are a coalition builder, but your accomplishments should reflect that. You must be someone who can get things done and speak with those who disagree with you. You need to be willing to listen, and you need to be willing to compromise so that you can learn and deliver on the promises you made. Because coalitions are meaningless without delivering results. I'm proud to serve now with the Democrats in the majority as the vice chair of the Education Committee, and I also serve as the chair of the Social Services Subcommittee. I was named Legislator of the Year by the Virginia Education Association, which represents more than 40,000 teachers and support staff across Virginia. And I was named a legislative leader by the League of Conservation Voters for my work to fight climate change. Our historic campaign has earned endorsements of elected officials and activists all around Virginia, including multiple Arlington and Alexandria City Council and school board members. We also have received the support of multiple labor unions and CASA in Action. every Virginian should have access to high quality education. So I fought to reduce the caseloads for our school counselors so that every child, no matter what their skin color or zip code, has access to the best public schools in the nation. And that means that we must raise teacher pay to make it competitive with the rest of the nation. We must be the voice of the seniors who have dedicated their life to Virginia and have chosen to stay in Virginia to enjoy their retirement. But to do all that, we must hold our trifecta. And I will promise be the person who works the hardest to win the primary and defeat the Republican and to protect our majority in the House. I'm the only candidate in this race who has held leadership positions in presidential campaigns, from precinct captain to Obama and every single Democrat who ran in Prince William County, to being the Virginia co-chair for the Bernie Sanders campaign. And I was proud to represent Virginia at the National Latino Leadership Council for the Biden campaign. Arlington seniors, if you want to do something that's never been done before, then we're gonna have to build something that's never been built before. We need to build a new coalition across Virginia of women and young people and seniors and people of color and immigrants and workers and rural voters. I hope you are with us because we have so much work to do. We need to recover from this pandemic. We need to achieve racial justice, get health care for all. We have to raise teacher pay, tackle the climate and opioid emergencies, and build a Virginia that is not only #1 for business, but also for working families and seniors. And I'll just end by saying that I know there has been a lot of distrust in our communities about the vaccine and who will get it and when. But as a member of the Health, Welfare, and Institutions Committee, with my colleague, Delegate Levine here, we both serve there, we will continue to speak truth to power, to hold this administration and health departments accountable, to ensure that our vaccine distribution is fair and efficient. You can watch, I held already a couple of town halls with Dr. Obola, one in English and another one in Spanish that are on my Facebook page and my social media accounts. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your statement. I guess I get to start with the first question. What if elected lieutenant governor, what would you do about economic development in Virginia?
Well, the lieutenant governor, one of the things, and I didn't see Delegate Hope here. Hello, Patrick. So I would like to say that the lieutenant governor will not be able to introduce legislation. However, it will be the chair of multiple commissions. So it is my role to travel across the Commonwealth and have this conversation. So how can we work with every stakeholder to improve economic development across the Commonwealth? And I will be bringing those ideas and priorities to make them into law by talking to the House of Delegates and the state senators, so they are priorities. But it has to be an inclusive conversation on all of the people who are going to be part of that change.
Thank you. Does someone else have a question for Delegate Guzman? Wave your hand or Stuart, do you have a question for Delegate Guzman? No? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Erica Wood, please go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon. And Delegate Guzman, thank you so much for your leadership in the sick leave issue. And I really appreciate all that you've done, as does the whole Northern Virginia Aging Network. But in your bill, there was a carve out for nursing homes and assisted living workers, CNAs, who so badly need that sick leave and who, when going from one facility to another may transfer that infection. So I wonder if you could speak to the importance of covering those healthcare workers for sick leave.
Well, and I'm sure that Delegate Senator Favola will touch that on her remarks, just to see how hard it is to get a basic days bill out of the Senate, And once again, thank you for her leadership. So to your question, Erica, the bill that came out of the House was an inclusive bill that supported all of the essential workers. That was our will from the members that are here with us, Delegate Levine and Delegate Hope as well. That's what we wanted. However, once it goes to the Senate, it's a different, way of priorities. When everybody thought that it was a lost cause, I was able to save the home healthcare workers and put it in the bill instead of the budget. So now it's part of the law. But that conversation that I had with Senator Barker is that we do support, those who provide services through Medicaid, the direct and indirect. And actually one of my coworkers yesterday, you probably know, Terry Lynch, brought it up to my attention as well, to tell me, it's like, how can we leave the work, the LPNs, the CNAs who work on the assisted living facilities and the seniors centers as well. And my desire is to include them all. So what I would ask, for the Northern Virginia Aging Network to reach out, to the senators, to George Barker, to all of the senators, because if you guys can convince them, Senator Favola and I have been trying for the last 3 years unsuccessfully. So if you can make that happen, we would love to have that conversation. And it could be, because as we were having this conversation about paid sick days, part of the conversation was whether the state will take the responsibility first, not to leave any worker behind. And actually, those workers also serve patients through Medicaid as well. So if at least we can start with those, because I do agree with you. If this pandemic has shown us anything, is that what public health is about and how important is get the healthcare of thy neighbor in order to put this pandemic behind us. So I would ask the Northern Virginia Aging Network to reach out to Senator Barker, to Senator Marsden, to Senator Saslo, the majority leader. If we can, and we can get him on board, because Senator Favola, I know she's on board, but we need the other senators, and Senator Evan also is on board. Senator Evan and Senator Sorrell were in favor of the inclusive bill, so as Senator Spruill. But if you can convince those three, that I agree with you. I think it's the right thing to do, and I would love to include them as well. But it's beyond me at this point. We will have to get the governor, but before we get to the governor to amend the bill, because at some point last year he was supporting paid sick days bills as well. But we need to get those three important stakeholders in the Senate on board, because we don't want to lose the bill either. We want to be able to at least provide to these 30,000 home health care workers the benefit of paid sick days.
Delegate Guzman, why don't you just take a minute or two to summarize and conclude, and be sure to mention your campaign website to us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Robert. I want to thank you one more time for having me here this afternoon. Our webpage is, I'm sure that Christy, who's with me today, she's my finance director. She can type in there our webpage, which is www.elizabethguzmanforvirginia.com, where you can learn more about my accomplishments and my vision for the Lieutenant Governor's race position. And I also would like to bring to your attention that early voting, no excuse, starts as early as April 24th. So I would ask you, if this is the campaign that you believe in, to share our message of progress with your family members, with your neighbors, relatives, so we can make history together. And one more time, thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it.
And we appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. We love hearing from the statewide candidates, and Patrick Hope at least is applauding. So, okay, good, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
So our next guest is Mark Levine, who represents 5 precincts in Arlington and some other precincts in some lesser known city. And then he's been very active. He was a legislative aide to Congressman
Barney Frank.
Barney Frank, thank you. Yes, and I'm sure he can reprise his whole resume, but I want to give him the floor for his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Most of you know me, and I know most of you. I hope you'll agree that even though Arlington is only 15 to 20% of my district, I have not neglected Arlington in any way. I've tried to play a very active role in Arlington, including getting rid of Jefferson Davis Highway, which I was told couldn't be done without legislative approval, couldn't be done under Republican rule. And I got that done for Arlington. I'm really proud of that. It's really great to see my friends, and they are my friends, Senator Barbara Favola and Delegate Patrick Hope here. Both of them will tell you, I think if you ask them, and you can ask them privately without me here, and they don't know I'm about to say this, so I'm sort of setting them up here. I've had long private conversations with both of them. And I think they will both tell you that I am persistent, that I try to get every single inch out of a bill I can. I try to wring every last mile, that I care about detail, that I'm known for my detail. I can find that errant comma. I can look in section C13B and find out that some part is wrong. One of the things about legislating that's rarely talked about is playing defense. Everyone talks about the bills they pass, and they should, and I'm proud of the dozens of bills I passed, the 100+ bills I've introduced. But I think both Senator Favola and Delegate Hope, and I know I put them on the spot, will tell you that I really do look at the details of bills. And frankly, I have killed at least 7 or 8 or 9 bills that went through unanimously. It went through the Senate unanimously, was on the House uncontested calendar, pulled it off the uncontested calendar, found problems with it, and got the governor to veto or amend them, because I do care about detail. And I think if y'all have heard me before, you know that I like to delve into the details. And I think that's actually very important, both as a legislator and at the statewide level. And I've enjoyed working with both of them. I don't mean to make this all about them, but Patrick Hope is my senior chair on the public safety. He's the chair of the Public Safety Committee. I proudly chair the Public Safety Subcommittee. So we work together a lot on those issues, particularly dealing with police reform, jailhouse protections, and so forth. And then Senator Favola and I don't know if she's still there anymore, but used to sit on the Domestic Violence Commission for domestic violence and sexual violence. This is an issue that I care strongly about. Most of you know the story of the death of my sister. And so I have a very personal connection to issues of domestic violence and sexual violence. An issue I worked on with Barbara was, I'm very, very proud of this, that we got 24/7 sexual assault nurse examiners to Northern Virginia, so that if someone is sexually assaulted at 2 a.m. on a Thursday, they can get immediate help. They get medical care, traumatic care, dealing with the trauma of the abuse, and then forensic care as well, so we can get evidence and put away the people that do these awful crimes. So I've really enjoyed working with both. They just happen to be here, but with both of my fellow Arlingtonians that I see here. I'm also proud, by the way, bragging a little bit, I am the second most progressive legislator, apparently, according to VAPLAN, in the sorry Patrick, sorry Barbara, no, but in the list. Sia Price beat me by one measure, but so if you're a solid progressive Democrat, I think you'll support me.
Mark, who was #1 last year? I forget.
Were you #1 last year, Patrick?
I was. Oh. Okay. I
was in like the top 3 or 4. I don't remember last year, but anyway.
You're progressive enough.
Thank you, Patrick. The other thing I've really fought for that I think you all know about or should know about is I'm the chair of the Virginia Transparency Caucus, which I founded on my second day in office back in 2016, still wet behind the ears as a freshman. People thought it was crazy, this idea that we should film, archive, stream, and record every single meeting, every committee meeting, every subcommittee of the General Assembly. Every vote should be recorded. I have fought really hard for transparency. It was a success. Managed to do it even under Republican rule, which wasn't easy. And I've been fighting for transparency in innumerable ways. I want to chat with you today about the Lieutenant Governor, because I don't think there's a lot of focus on what the Lieutenant Governor does, should do, or is about. We have 3 statewide elected offices in Virginia. Many states have many more. California has like 7 or 8, I forget how many. We have 3. The governor, we all know what the governor does, a lot of power, a lot of responsibility, a lot of work. The Attorney General, again, a lot of power, a lot of responsibility, does a tremendous amount of work. Lieutenant Governor is almost like the stepchild of Virginia government. If you look at the Constitution, what does Lieutenant Governor do? Lieutenant Governor presides over the Senate, breaks ties in the Senate, and checks on the governor's health from time to time. Although apparently no Lieutenant Governor has ever has ever succeeded to a governor. That's it. Work 2 months of the year, go home, spend 10 months doing other things, right? With no disrespect to our current lieutenant governor, he's a lawyer 10 months out of the year. Our past lieutenant governor, Ralph Northam, was a doctor 10 months out of the year. Here you go, you get a statewide elected, you work 2 months, and you go home. Now, I think the model for the Virginia lieutenant governor is a good 18th, 19th century model. It's actually the same model as U.S. vice president. If you look back 100 years, John Nance Garner, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's vice president, said the vice presidency isn't worth a bucket of warm, and I won't say the word he said after because this is a crowd that probably shouldn't use such language. But you know, the vice president of the United States did nothing 100 years ago except preside over the Senate and check on the president's health. Nobody thinks that today's vice president, Kamala Harris, is going to do that. Or Joe Biden when he was vice president, or frankly, Dick Cheney when he was vice president. Today, people understand in a 21st century model, the vice president is an active, engaged person in the executive branch. I pledged to make the lieutenant governor a full-time job, not 2 months of the year, 12 months out of the year, to go to every single one of Virginia's 133 counties and cities and chat with folks face to face, eye to eye, in small towns, in places that don't see Democrats very often, in deep Southwest Virginia, Southside Virginia, go into distressed towns, and really get to know people. And I'll tell you why I think this is important. I think that all across the United States, and certainly in Virginia, there's a tremendous disconnect between people and their government. There's this feeling the government is this foreign occupying force. There's also, let's face it, there's a lot of fake news out there, conspiracy theories, craziness. And I know a lot of this comes from Donald Trump, but honestly, it predated Donald Trump and it continues after his presidency. And I got to tell you, I've looked at cults. I've looked at how to get people out of those situations. And I don't think the QAnon conspiracy theorists are that dedicated to anonymous Q. I think folks are suffering. And that is just a way to show they're suffering. Maybe they're not earning enough pay. Maybe they can't afford health care, or their parents are sick. And I think if you go and you sit eye to eye and talk with people in their environment, in their diners, in their homes, and say, how's your job? How are your wages? How are your benefits? How are your parents? How's the schooling in your area? Are there enough jobs in your area? How's your broadband? Can you get internet broadband? What is troubling you right now? Is it coastal flooding? Is it weather events? Is it harder to farm these days? And really have that conversation in a way that honestly the governor doesn't have time to do, or the attorney general doesn't have time to do. I want to be the voice of the people, the conduit between the people and the central government, talking to Republicans and Democrats alike, talking to rural and urban Virginians alike, going deep into Black communities and saying, tell me about the police in their community. Are they profiling you? Where? When's it happening? How's it happening? Who's causing the trouble? And bring these issues back to the central government, to the governor, and really transform the office of lieutenant governor. In fact, it is my vision that after I leave the lieutenant governor's office, I hope it never goes back to being a part-time job. I want to make it a 21st century job, not a 19th, 20th century job. And so that from now on, after I serve, people will understand, no, lieutenant governor is an important job, and it is the voice of the people. It is the conduit. I'm all about transparency. Y'all know that. It's about accessibility. I've had Mark's monthly meetups now for 6 years. Every single month. It's like office hours. We used to meet in a restaurant. Now we do it online. I will continue Mark's monthly meetups as lieutenant governor so that any person in Virginia who wants to ask me any question about anything will get a chance to do that. Because people need to be connected to their government. The people are our bosses, and we need to listen to them, even if we don't agree with them. I think people will tell you that when folks disagree with me, I don't walk away. I get in there. I say, all right, I agree with you here. I disagree with you there. Let's talk about this. And we have a conversation. We have a connection. And I think the real problem in Virginia and the United States of America is too many people live in their silos. You know, we watch MSNBC, they watch Fox. I've gone on Fox for 10 years now, taken on Laura Ingraham and Bill O'Reilly. We have to talk with each other. And so I vow to continue that fight as lieutenant governor. And one thing I guess I disagree with my good friend Delegate Guzman, I think the lieutenant governor can have a legislative agenda. There's nothing to say that we can't. The attorney general has a legislative agenda. The attorney general pushes forward certain bills. Currently it's a he, works with delegates and senators to put forward the things he wants to see. I would do the same as lieutenant governor. I would establish an agenda right at the outset, bills I want to see passed, and I would work to make that happen. So I plan to be a very, very active lieutenant governor, a full-time lieutenant governor. I hope to transform the office. Y'all know my passion. You know my vision. You know I don't ever quit. The way I see it, all I have is successes and not yet successes. Because unless you quit, you can still keep trying until you get something right. And that's the way I've always worked and the way I'll continue to work. I was an activist for 25 years before I ever held elective office. And I'm looking forward to hitting the ground running and serving all of you. So with that, I'm happy to take some questions.
All right. Well, I'll ask you the first question, which is, what do you see as the major challenges in November between the Republicans and the Democrats? Obviously, there'll be a lot of national attention devoted to Virginia statewide races and New Jersey statewide races, and all this bottled up passion and perhaps finances from what happened in 2020 will carry forward. But how do you see that playing out? How can we channel all that national attention and energy?
Well, I've given you some of the things. If the question is, what do I think? Well, let me answer it in two ways, Bob. I want to talk about what Democrats care about, and maybe what Republicans care about, and maybe independents as well. I think Democrats care about the same issues that I've been fighting on with Patrick and Barbara for 6 years now. Voting rights, which we've done a tremendous work on in the Privileges and Elections Committee, access to vote, people having more rights to vote, early voting, all these things that we instituted on that I've been proud to be a part of. Criminal justice reform, another thing I've worked on heavily with Delegate Hope, and making sure that people have a chance, have due process, aren't railroaded into the system, and more importantly, can get out of the system and live their lives again. These are things I fought for, many of which we've achieved, and many of which we haven't gotten to yet. Issues like sealing and expungement, and I'm still proud of my Good Apples bill, which says that covering up police misconduct should not be allowed. I mean, it amazed me that it was passed the House. It hasn't gotten through the Senate yet. I think for Republicans and independents, a lot of it is I've already told you about. It's about reaching out. It's about connecting. There are things we're going to agree on. Transportation needs, internet broadband. My work on sexual violence and domestic violence is not at all a partisan issue. My work on transparency, I did that with someone who is, how do I put this on a recorded line? Let's just say she's gone off the deep end in some ways. I even called upon her to resign, but yes, I worked with Amanda Chase. Maybe I'm the only one in the General Assembly that could work with Amanda Chase. But look, I disagree with her on 99% of things, no question about it. And I think she's done some really awful things. But on transparency, we got that done. I worked with Matt Ferris, who's from a very conservative, very rural district. We worked together on protecting animals from abusive tethering. So I've worked on solid progressive issues, whether it's the minimum wage or labor rights or voting rights or criminal justice reform, or gun laws. I mean, I'm really proud of my record protecting against gun violence, and I've only gotten Democratic votes for that. My bills, 2 bills that passed this year, protecting our polling places where we can vote, and more importantly, every single government building, state government building in Virginia is now gun-free. That's my legislation, including the state capitol in Capitol Square. And that wasn't an easy bill to get passed. You can ask Delegate Hope. Thank you for the claps. It was hard. So I'm very proud of my record. But at the same time, there are absolutely issues that we can work on with Republicans. And and when I think about Republicans, I'm not talking about the elected leaders. I'm not talking about Todd Gilbert. I'm talking about the guy in Wise County whose mom is sick, and she may even be dying, and he wants to see her. He wants to see his mom and hold her hand in her last moments of her life, but he can't. And he can't because he can't afford it. He can't take the time off work. One of the first bills I introduced, in fact, I'm the first legislator in Virginia to introduce this bill, is paid family medical leave. And we haven't achieved it yet, but we're working on it. and I hope we get there, because you know what? The guy in Wise County, the guy in Norton, the guy in Galax, or the woman in Danville, the woman in Shenandoah, she or he may not want these progressive bills, but they want to visit their parents when they're sick. Mom or dad is ill. That's a family value. You want to be there for them. That's and it's suddenly it's not a left-right issue. It's a basic family issue. And these are the kinds of things I think the conversations I can have if I'm going to them in their homes, talking to them face to face. Yeah, Michael.
Mark, I welcome you to the race, but there are other very progressive candidates in this race. So the question is, what distinguishes you from the other candidates? Why should we vote for you?
That's a great question and a fair one. Let me start with the fact that I'm the only one talking about this vision of a full-time lieutenant governor. The others, you get 1/6 of the year, you'll get me 12 months out of the year. And I mean it. I mean, when I've committed to 133 counties and cities, that's going to take a lot of time. So you will have a full-time lieutenant governor, and that's a vision that I want to put forward. Secondly, I think you'll find, if you look at my record, that I am known for detail. I'm known for persistence. I've been there 6 years now. I have experience. I also have experience working for Congressman Barney Frank for a few years. I've seen one of the best progressive leaders in the United States in public and in private, and I learned a lot from him about how to. I'll tell you, you don't know how I got transparency through? I didn't get it through the legislature. I didn't get it through a bill. The Republicans were in charge. Do I know how I got it through? I circulated a letter. I talked to every single one of the 140 senators and delegates, Republicans and Democrats, face to face, and I said, do you believe in transparency? If so, sign my letter. And what did I do? The first year, I got a majority of the House and the Senate to sign. Republicans still didn't move. The second year, I got 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. And when they still didn't move, I gave the letter to the press. And the press called those Republicans that didn't sign my letter and said, hey, Delegate X, why didn't you sign Mark's letter? It was hilarious. One of them said, well, I think Mark was I was in the bathroom at the time. Wasn't true. I went to every single delegate and senator. It's like the dog ate my homework. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. And I've done that. I haven't just put forward bills that have passed. I'm proud of those. But I have worked, the thing I did with Barbara, the sexual assault nurse examiners, that was a federal grant. We didn't do that through the legislature either. There are lots of different ways to do something. And I think you'll find, Michael, if you look at my record, I found creative solutions. Jefferson Davis Highway, there's another example, right? Everyone said it couldn't be done. I didn't try to get it through the legislature when Republicans were in control. I knew they would kill it, right? Even the Arlington County Board told me, Mark, it's really not possible. What did I do? I went back in the law and I looked at the legislative history of that law. And I found out that there was an exception in the legislative history, and I made a legal case, and I went to Mark Herring, and I convinced him, and then he wrote a letter, and lo and behold, we transformed Jefferson Davis Highway, the first renamed highway in Virginia, right? I got it done, not through the legislature, but because I found a legal loophole. People will tell you I am creative, I am persistent, I look at the details, and I think that of all the candidates running, I think I present that case the best. Also, if you want transformation, I just got to point out, I would be the first openly gay lieutenant governor in the United States. We've never had one before. So, I bring my, and also when it comes to obviously LGBT rights, I've written the most comprehensive bill in the history of Virginia that passed just last year. I've been a true advocate for working really, really hard on these issues. So we still got some I'm still fighting for. But I've really been a champion on that issue, on domestic violence, on if you care about gun violence protection, you will not find a stronger champion of those issues than me. So, Michael, I hope that answers your question at least somewhat.
I think we have to wrap things up. So could you possibly summarize in just a minute or two and be sure to mention your website to us?
Absolutely. Well, the website is levineforvirginia.com, LEVINEFORVIRGINIA.com. This race is wide open, folks. The latest poll shows me tied for the lead, yay, with a bunch of other people. 87% are undecided. 87% of Democrats in Virginia are undecided. And I'm in the lead along with several others. Anyone can win this race. If you believe in my vision, not just my progressivism, but my passion, If you like someone who gives you the details, believes in the details, I guarantee you, I'm not only the most transparent, but the most accessible. All of you know you can call me and I'll talk your ear off, and you may disagree with me, but you know you can always reach me and I'll always listen to you. The most transparent, the most accessible, the hardest working. Would love to have your support. Would love to have you join the campaign. Let's transform lieutenant governorship. Let's make it from now in the future as a full-time job. I'm not running to be anything else. I'm running to be lieutenant governor of Virginia. I'm proud to be that, and I hope you'll come and support my campaign. Thanks, Bob, and thanks everyone, Arlington Senior Democrats, for having me here today.
And we thank you for taking the time. You're welcome to stay on the call if you want, but we are going to now move to our next event, which is a panel discussion between Senator Favola and Delegate Patrick Hope, with Senator Favola hopefully presenting the Senate perspective on this last session, and followed by Patrick giving us the House perspective. And we're going to have plenty of time for questions, but we want to let each of them sort of set the table first. So we give you Senator Barbara Favola.
I'm going to head out, folks. I think it's fair to say that I know pretty much everything Senator Favola or Delegate Hope would say, because I talk to both of them frequently. So with that, I'm going to head out. Thanks again for having me here.
Thank you. Goodbye, Mark.
Bye.
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to join you and the other senior Democrats who are chiming in, or maybe not chiming in, but listening in to this discussion. We had a very, I think, transformational session, even though it was a short one. You know, the 2021 session is sort of the off year. So the budget work was really just amendments to the governor's budget. It wasn't sort of a full look, if you will, at the next biennium. But I want to just start off by saying Virginia is a very well managed state, and surprisingly, we have not had as large a loss in revenue as one would have expected. Apparently Virginians are really ordering on Amazon and through other internet sources. So our sales taxes have gone up. House sales around the Commonwealth actually are at least even to pre-pandemic levels, or in some cases higher. So our recordation tax has been fine. We have not had a significant reduction in income tax returns either. So, so in terms of ongoing dollars, we had the resources we needed to keep our basic core services functioning. We did get, as you know, stimulus money, CARES money that we were able to allocate as well. And I'm hoping, it looks like we're going to get this rescue money or some rescue money that President Biden will be able to sign after the House of Representatives accepts the changes that the Senate made. So I think that's good news for everybody. What our good fiscal situation enabled us to do was we put money in reserve so we could maintain our AAA bond rating, but more importantly is we could use the federal stimulus money to really address COVID-related safety net issues that absolutely had to be addressed to ensure that Virginians could maintain a certain quality of life, a certain status of health and safety, and that they could get back on their feet after this COVID crisis. And we had the ability to be able to infuse dollars in a way that I think will make a big difference. You know, the governor is putting, we had $50 million put into sort of a renter protection. So that would be used by both renters and landlords to ensure that folks could avoid eviction. We were able to add FTEs to the Virginia Unemployment Office so we could buttress federal efforts to get unemployment claims processed. We also had dollars available to help schools, what we called reclaiming academic success. This is sort of the verbiage we used. We're hoping that schools will be able to enhance whatever programs they're currently offering, either in person or online, and to actually have summer school programs. We were able to disperse enough dollars to ensure that students, every student throughout the Commonwealth, had some kind of tablet so they could do online coursework. The problem was, even if they had broadband, sometimes that broadband was not reliable and certainly not fast enough. So that was an issue. And then we did have pockets where broadband was not going right into the homes. Students had to go to hotspots. The governor had put, over the past year and a half, we've put $85 million into broadband grants. So I feel really good about the fact that we were able to provide these safety net services. And I want to give a shout out to all of you on the call who have been volunteering with nonprofit groups, who have given your time, you know, to deliver Meals on Wheels or to donate to AFAC or whatever nonprofit organization you have aligned yourself with to supplement what the state has been able to do for those who have been hardest hit. Kudos, my hat's off to you. The COVID-19 vaccination effort, I think, is going as much better than it was a few weeks ago. The federal government did increase its supply to Virginia, which was important. In the Arlington situation, I worked with Governor Northam, and he actually signed a letter with the mayor of DC and with Governor Hogan in Maryland to increase proportionately the dollars, the vaccines coming to Arlington, because we had such a high percentage of our workforce who were under the 1A category. They were not federal employees, but they were federal contractors, and they had the top security clearance. They were getting vaccines in their workplace, so we didn't quite have the supply of vaccines I thought we needed for our residents. That has been adjusted. That was corrected. It looks like our vaccine registration portal is working. You can register with the state registration portal, or you can register with Arlington County, but we're keeping track. We're lining people up. The state is now moving as a whole to the 1B category, which is really important. As you know, our teachers are right now being vaccinated. The governor has asked that by March 15th, every school system in the Commonwealth offer some in-person learning, which I think is absolutely critical, especially when you look at our younger students, the K through 3rd grade. They're not doing so well on the virtual learning. Their attention span doesn't lend itself to the virtual learning environment. They need to be back in school right away. Our special needs children need to be back in school. And the state is doing everything it possibly can to help school systems get to that in-person and online environment. So parents are offered both options, but in-person is definitely available come March 15th. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of sort of the governing backdrop. But the things that you've been reading about, the big new transformational issues that the General Assembly worked on this past session, legalizing marijuana and the death penalty, the passage of the repeal of the death penalty. I'll go to the repeal of the death penalty. I was incredibly excited. For 3 years, I had offered a repeal of the death penalty for those who were deemed to be seriously mentally ill at the time the crime was committed. And I argued about culpability and framed the legislation based on US Supreme Court decisions that had exempted other categories from the death penalty, such as juveniles or individuals with diminished intellectual capacity. I tried 3 years to get this through, could not get it past the House. It passed the Senate. So I was holding my breath this year when Senator Servell introduced a complete repeal of the death penalty. I could not be prouder of Virginia for supporting that. You know, we had actually executed, excuse me, the most number of individuals of any state for years. And to have such a cultural and humane turning point, and to be part of that historic passage of legislation, I thought was really meaningful for me personally. The next thing the General Assembly did was the legalization of marijuana. Yes, thank you, Pat. That was it was great. Thank you. And again, I want to acknowledge the work that our faith-based communities did to help us pass that repeal. And many of you on this call, you wrote to us and you were very diligent, and we do thank you. So I chair the Rehabilitation and Social Services Committee, and we cover 3 major areas of work. We have the social services safety net for, our TANF programs, which would be assistance to our needy families, foster care children, the social services safety net. Other programs would come, food stamps, all of those programs would come under my committee. And I'm really glad about that, because that happens to be my professional background, as well as healthcare. But that doesn't come under rehab and social services. We also have the whole operation of the rehabilitative portion of our prisons and jails. That's all under my committee. So whether we, abolish the ban that currently exists on parole, all of those, how we prepare individuals for re-entry into society, that all comes under rehab and social services. And then, of course, because in the actual definition of the mission of rehab and social services, the committee's in charge of morals, which goes way back to when the committee was established many, many years ago. And that language has not ever been removed from the mission statement that is adopted by the General Assembly periodically. So under that comes the regulation of alcohol and marijuana. So we had a 500-page bill, 260 pages each side, 500 pages of solo pages to legalize marijuana, and the bulk of that bill was heard by my committee. We ended up, I think, with a nice hybrid where we will continue to call simple possession of marijuana, 1 ounce or less, is decriminalized. We decriminalized it last year. It is only eligible for a $25 fine. An individual will not get any kind of record. So we continue that status. And we also say, though, that individuals as of July 1, 2021, who may have a felony conviction for 1 ounce or less possession of marijuana, that record will be automatically erased, expunged, or sealed, depending on which version of the bill you read. If there were felony convictions, an individual might have a felony conviction for intent to distribute or something larger than the 1 ounce of possession, then they would have to apply to a judge to get to have a full hearing and to get the record expunged. So that's sort of where we addressed the social justice, criminal justice aspect of legalizing marijuana. Why we didn't make possession of marijuana completely legal right away, it's because we had a countervailing value of ensuring that there was some social equity when we allow the licenses to be dispersed for the cultivation, distribution, and retail of marijuana. So, my committee, Rehab and Social Services, actually will have oversight over that whole process, the licensure process. We put in criteria for ensuring that individuals and communities that have been over-policed regarding, the usage of marijuana would have now access to capital and access to a market opportunity to participate in whatever economic value may be generated because of the sale of marijuana. So that's sort of the marijuana bill in a nutshell. we went through a pretty rigorous conference committee report. So I kudos to my colleagues in the House, Charnel Herring, the Speaker, many others were involved in the crafting the conference committee report for the legalization of marijuana. It is now on the governor's desk. Legalization will actually take place in 2024. Again, it will continue as just a civil infraction. I talked to you already about the expungement effort. A new agency will be established, a cannabis authority to deal with the cultivation, distribution, and retail aspects and the licensures associated with that. We focused very much on if this is adult use. We've got a big education campaign built in. A third of the revenue that we're expected to receive over 5 years, about $300 million in tax revenue. A third of that revenue will go to substance abuse prevention and treatment programs. Some revenue will go to pre-K programs. And I forgot, I'll have to check where the third category is that will receive some dollars from some earmarked dollars from the revenue generated from the legalization of marijuana. I'll quickly do two areas that I spent a lot of time on. On gun safety, I had an assault and battery bill, which would have actually protected household members against somebody in their household who had a firearm. If that person had been convicted of a misdemeanor assault and battery, the person would have lost the firearm permanently. The bill was amended so we could actually get it passed in the Senate. Delegate Murphy carried the House version, and I worked on doing an amendment to her bill, which now limits the bill to assault and battery of a spouse or longtime partner, and it would be conviction of a misdemeanor assault and battery, and there would be an opportunity to request the reinstatement of your gun rights after 3 years. So that's the bill that actually passed. I think it's a good compromise. I'm happy we were able to get something through, but that's where we are on that. I did some mental health bills. For years, Virginia had on its books a barrier to access for care for immigrants. Our state facilities, until my bill becomes law, our state facilities are required to ask the immigration status of an individual seeking mental health services. This is a huge barrier. It is a relic of the 1950s. Virginia was only one of 2 states that still had such a law on the books. I'm hoping the governor signs it. No other area of health care asks the immigration status of an individual, no other, except the mental health area. So I'm hoping my bill gets signed. And then I worked with Patrick on a bill. I put the bill in, but Patrick had certainly a lot of input. This bill will require the local board of the Board of Local and Regional Jails to sit down with stakeholders and ensure that the care we're providing to pregnant inmates, both prenatal delivery and postpartum care, actually meets the standards of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So that's a quick overview of the work we did in the Senate, and always happy to work with my colleagues in the House of Delegates. And I guess I'll turn it over to Patrick.
Yes, Patrick, you'll go next, and we'll save the questions until after your presentation.
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good. What Senator Favola and I agreed to is that we sort of divide and conquer here, and I think she summed it up correctly with trying to describe an adjective for this session using the word transformative. I've heard, last session we talked about historic. I've also been using the word consequential for this session. Any way you look at it, I think it's a good time to pause and reflect on what's occurred over the last 2 years, the 2 sessions, I should say, really a year and a half, is all the things that we've accomplished, both in our budget and criminal justice reform and police reform. our protecting the environment for future generation, the money that we put into education, transportation. It's just been transformative, and it's been very consequential and historic. We're living in the middle of history. We're always living in history, but people will look back at this point over the last 2 years as being a defining moment where Virginia's progressive values have really taken hold as a state. How many times do you hear about us passing laws and being the first state in the South to enact such a law? I mean, it's too many times to remember. And it's really what's happened over the last 2 years. So you've elected people that have put us in this position, and I think that we've responded. I want to build on what Senator Favola talked about with the budget and just say, this has been for our economy, we're doing much better off than a lot of different states, but there are still a lot of people struggling. And, at the end, the governor was able to release a little over about $750 million extra that we can apply towards other human services and other in targeted ways towards people that the economy hasn't been so good to. And so, affordable housing will make a significant increase in there, particularly for people that are with struggling with evictions or issues with their tenant landlord issue. Hazard pay and paid sick leave you already discussed. And so ensuring that people have employment insurance quickly as possible, and even healthcare workers and first responders to make sure that they receive workers' compensation if they die or are disabled due to COVID. And so we made some really good steps there that are targeted steps that really help a lot of people. I will say, I know that there are some consternation on the marijuana bill. Not everyone thinks that it went far enough. There was a linkage, and this was really close to not passing in the House. And I should just say so, because we linked legalization to the day that you do sales, and those should be delinked. And because there's a lot of people of color that will still be disproportionately affected, even though we've decriminalized it, it's still illegal, and you can still get into the justice system, and it will be a disproportion of people that will be pulled into the justice system. And so why are you still putting on the book something that will one day be legalized? And so I know that there's an effort to try to de-link the issue with sales and legalization, to try to speed up legalization. I don't know when it will be. I don't know if it should be July or January or when, or somewhere in the middle, but it should be sooner than sales. And so I think that you'll see an effort to try to speed that up. On criminal justice reform, a number of different areas there. One thing that I think is really important that I hope you, the voter, will see very soon, next November, in fact, is the constitutional amendment for automatic restoration of rights. We passed the first iteration of that, and we'll have to pass it again next session. And then the following November, if we get that far, you will see it on as a referendum in that November 2022 election. A lot of good progress that we made. Other areas of criminal justice reform was to allow for evidence to be presented for someone that's seriously mentally ill and non-insanitary insanity cases, ending the presumption against bail. Currently, if you are arrested, you have to prove that you should not be detained while awaiting trial. And of course, that's the reverse that we've always been taught, that you're innocent until proven guilty. And so we've ended the presumption against bail. We've ended the felony petit larceny law, which is essentially our version of 3 strikes and you're out. So you could have 3 misdemeanors. Remember, we raised the felony threshold to $1,000. So if you steal a bar of soap 3 times, that's 3 strikes. On that third larceny charge for that bar of soap, you could be committed a felony just for stealing a bar of soap. So we reverse that. Many of the people that are stealing these sort of low dollar amounts tend to be homeless. They tend to be people with serious mental illness. And so we reverse that. We've created different degrees of robbery. Under current law, you have a mandatory 5 years for committing a robbery. And so what we did was we said, no, not all robberies are created equal. And so we went ahead and created degrees based on the seriousness of the offense. I want to mention something about the environment just because we're moving towards the electrification of automobiles. And so Virginia has set a standard, and California actually started it, but a clean car standard, which would make electric cars really create a market in Virginia for electric cars to be readily available in the year 2025, and also created a electric vehicle rebate for people to purchase automobiles. And so I think creating a grant program. And so I think this will create a market for more people to start buying electric cars. So really around electrification of our auto industry and creating a market there. I want to just highlight some of the things on gun violence prevention, because we had quite a year last year, but we didn't really let up at all. And Senator Favola should be commended for her bill that she got it through. The Senate gave her a hard time on her bill, but she worked really hard to make sure that the House version that came over was suitable and able to get the votes in order to do that. And I know that wasn't clear up until the day of the vote, that we were actually going to get enough votes to get it over. So really kudos to her for doing that. But a couple of things to highlight. In fact, Mark Levine carried a couple of these. One is to ban firearms in polling places, which is something that we've seen as an intimidation tactic that the other side uses quite a bit. Banning guns on Capitol grounds. I mean, I've had a number of constituents that have come to me on, especially the Martin Luther King Day, which is sort of the gun rally day, that people just say they don't feel comfortable and they don't come back, which is their right to lobby and address their government. Don't feel right and comfortable in an environment like that, and so they stay away. On Martin Luther King Day, I mean, someone that fought for equal rights and against violence and gun violence, and to really be pushed away by something like that. So we banned the guns and firearms on Capitol Square, which I think was a big accomplishment. I carried it for a few years, and but Mark Levine got it over the finish line. We did pass a bill that would allow school boards to declare all their buildings gun-free. There are some schools that don't operate in a typical education government center, that they use a different building just for school board meetings, and it would allow to include those different buildings into the ban, which Arlington adopted over the summer, which I'm glad they did. This was an authority that we gave Arlington County, all jurisdictions, that was permissive, that allowed them to ban guns in government buildings. It allows them to do it at parks as well too. If you go to any of Arlington parks, you'll see a sign that bans guns. It makes very clear. So there's signage everywhere. And libraries has been a big issue, point of contention as well too. And so this just expands that to allow school boards to do it in their buildings as well. And another bill that was passed by Delegate Lopez, which would extend the time that state police has to conduct state background checks from 3 days, which is what's current law, to 5 days. And we're told the state police needs that time. It's called the Charleston loophole. And so we passed that bill as well. And of course, in addition to the bill that Senator Favola mentioned. And then a lot of things on voting, which I think was passed this session that I think everyone, and I hope everyone, was able to take advantage of during the presidential campaign, allowing people to the no excuse absentee voting, the prepaid postage that I think a lot of people took advantage of, and the absentee ballots, the drop boxes that were scattered throughout the county, really scattered throughout the state, that made it a little bit more easy, and allowing you that if you didn't sign the back of your envelope before sending it in, that it would count, and so you have the ability to cure those different errors. So we codified those things. So that's the law now, to make sure that we want to make voting easier. The other thing that we did was we passed a Voting Rights Act, Virginia's version of Voting Rights Act as well, to prevent last-minute poll closures. Citizens can sue, so it created some citizen rights to sue if the change in a polling location would disproportionately affect people of color. And so people can file claims. It gives the Attorney General different rights as well to pursue litigation to cure those different issues that come up. So I'll go ahead and stop there. But again, I mean, whatever adjective you choose to describe this session, I ask you just to reflect and look what we've accomplished this session, the special session that we held over the summer that was primarily focused on criminal justice and police reform, and the 2020 session. And it's just a really remarkable achievements that we've been able to accomplish. And I'm very proud of Arlington. I'm very proud of the community that I'm from, just because these are things that Senator Favola and I have been advocating since the day we were elected. And how many times do elected officials say, Senator Favola from Arlington, I want to bring Arlington values to Richmond? By God, we're starting to do
say
it.
it all the time.
And our hard work is starting to pay off. So I'll go ahead and stop there and just happy to entertain any questions.
And
Thanks for having us.
So appreciate the two of you giving us those reports. I'll start with the first question, which is, where are we on redistricting? I know that the citizens panel has been convened, and there was a delay in the census data, but are we on track to really have a decent map come out of this new process, or where do you think we are on that?
Well, I mean, I think the sense of urgency, I'll just say, I think the sense of urgency of getting the maps done right away to influence this election this year for the House of Delegates is now off the table. So we're going to have to run in the House of Delegates on the old maps. But so I'd anticipate that we'll get the data probably sometime this summer, but buys us a little bit more time since we're not under a emergency order to act right away. And so I would imagine you'll see something probably sometime in the fall, is my guess. But again, there's no real sense of urgency. I think before we're going to have to call a special session to bring us talk about if we're going to make it in time to influence this year's election. But since that's off the table, there's really no urgency to get something done this year. But I do expect that the group has assembled, and once they receive the data, which we think is now going to be in the summer, early part of summer, that they have a little bit more time to get it right.
Yes. All right, Stuart has the next question. Go ahead.
I apologize. It's just one thing that probably Patrick meant to say. Yes, the House of Delegates is running in their current districts in 2021, but once the redistricting plan is approved by the General Assembly, which would be, I would hope, the regular session 2022, the General Assembly has to run in the next election, in the next full election is right after that, the adopted plan. So the General Assembly would be running again, the House of Delegates in 2022, and then in 2023, which is their usual cycle. And of course, the state Senate will be running in 2023 under the new plan. So I just think you should know that our House of Delegates will really be quite busy over the next 3 years.
Yeah, it could take a court order to reverse that. And I suppose that's possible, but because you'd have to get permission from the court to run in lines that are not constitutionally mandated. So there'd have to be a court influence on, but you're right, that's looking like the way it's going.
That's sort of what we're planning on. And I just want to add one thing, that at least the Senate, and I don't know, Patrick, if the House has talked about this, but the Senate is expecting to have a special session to allocate the dollars that we get, hopefully, from this new federal package, the rescue package. So I would, that's what we're doing. So
that's right.
All right. So Stuart Scott has the next question.
Well, thanks for the efforts on climate change through transportation and pushing for lower emissions and more electric vehicles. And I believe that there was a chief of the Virginia Car Dealers, a Virginia Car Dealers Association, that actually was supporting some of these bills. So could you just review what are the initial requirements under both in terms of electrical vehicle sales and reducing emissions, and say what do you think will be the hardest part of achieving those goals?
I can take that. with the way the electric car vehicle reads is when the new models come out in 2025, so I guess they start promoting them, December 2024. So when the 2025 model comes out, they will have to meet a low emission or zero emission standard. And we get to a zero emission standard over time, it's phased in. And the way the language reads is Virginia would participate in a council with 14 other states to sort of determine what the standards will be and how quickly they'll be phased in. And all of this will be done through a regulatory process. I will tell you, the Virginia Auto Dealers Association did not initially support the electric vehicle standard legislation. We had to bring them along. And now I think, I believe that the dealers in our region will welcome the opportunity to sell these electric vehicles, and I think there's a market for them. It's really a large proportion of our emissions, as you know, carbon emissions come from vehicles. So I thought that was a major coup, getting that through.
Yeah, I agree. I would just say that I think the market is starting to push this, and I think the auto dealers, certainly the automakers, are seeing this, and they're making these declarations all over the world that that's all the things that they're going to be selling in the near future, whether it's 2025 or 2030. This does push it a little bit faster, but as Senator Favola noted, it phases in. And again, I think that you're seeing people that are looking for cars are looking for cleaner cars. I think a combination of forces of the market pushing in this direction and the automakers themselves, I think is just driven that conclusion.
Oh, sorry. You alluded to the rebate program, but it was not funded or something, or what is the status of the rebate?
Yeah, it was not funded. They created the EV rebate fund, but they did not fund it. I think the idea is to fund it in future years as we get closer to 2025.
Okay.
That's the expectation.
Thank you.
And as Senator Favola pointed out, the president has been working with Congress on this rescue package. There could be some funding in there. There's certainly infrastructure funding that could be in there that could be used for something like this if we were to decide to do so. And I understand that's going to be voted on tomorrow in the House, and it should go to the president at that point.
Okay. And any questions from anyone else? So we've got a very knowledgeable audience here. Joan McDermott, please ask your question. Joan, unmute yourself.
We can't hear you, Joan.
Joan, just hit your mic so you can unmute yourself.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question for Patrick because you are chair of the Joint Commission on Healthcare, and I know that one of the studies is going to be on nursing home standards. Do you know anything about the scope of that, and then any other studies that the Joint Commission is going to do?
Sure, and Senator Favola serves on the Joint Commission. We serve together. We have prioritized that issue, that topic, and I think that we're initially looking at the nursing standard. Senator Delegate Watts has put in a bill for a number of years to look at that standard and to see if we can meet the standard and provide resources for reimbursement for them to do it. But something that I put in the chat while Delegate Guzman was speaking was that on the sick leave issue, we're going to look at that as well too. So we're going to look at it very broadly on that topic. And so I would expect, the commission is already conducting some research I'd expect to start seeing some product, some principles come out at least sometime late spring, maybe early summer, and that we'll refine that and talk a little bit more and try to figure out a way to fund it. The other issues that we're going to focus on is making health insurance more affordable. And that includes, well, I should say that the first study with nursing homes in congregate living is not just for the facilities themselves. The second part of that study is going to be community home-based care as well. And so those two issues are going to be taken together. So that does bring in not just older adults, but also people with disabilities as well. And it's looking at those different aspects. And then the other study is where we're looking at the lowering of insurance and making insurance more affordable. And so that could include anything from like making Medicaid a buy-in program for people, or something that Senator Favola and I have been working on is creating a basic health plan that would make people eligible for Medicaid up to 200% of federal poverty. But the idea, of course, is to try to make lower insurance rates and looking at prescription drugs as well too, some of those big cost drivers, and to try to figure out some options that Virginia can adopt to make insurance more affordable.
I do want to add on a related topic, and I know that Erica Wood and NVAN and you, Joan, have been working on getting us to increase the auxiliary grant reimbursement, and we were able to do a 20% increase in the auxiliary grant this year, which was phenomenal. I mean, we've been trying forever, and you know, I think one thing the pandemic has shown us is when you don't have really strong quality healthcare systems in place, people suffer and people can die. So we have to ensure that our healthcare opportunities, and assisted living is one of those, that, you know, both how we house people and how we provide care, that we do it in a quality way. And that is related to payment and training, and ensuring that our workers really do have the ability they need to do the job. And there's one other bill that passed, again, related to home care. And I think it was an important bill, and I participated in getting it through. And that has to do with providing home care and the value of sort of telehealth at the same time. So, because your home care workers are very isolated. And so what is you know, could we be using virtual tools to ensure that quality is being provided in that home setting? So just thought I'd add that.
Pat, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I would like to know about what you think the future of NPV, National Popular Vote. That is one of my passionate issues, and it keeps getting, it seems to me, pushed to the rear. So I'm wondering what you think.
Patrick, are you on privileges and elections? I am not.
Well, it can pass the House, it just can't pass the Senate.
Just can't pass the Senate.
So I don't, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know.
Do we know who is responsible for it not passing the Senate? I would like names.
I have to get out of committee.
I think Senator Eben has been a patron of the bill, and he sits on privileges and elections, and he is a senior member. He's been on P&E for as long as, you know, the 10 years I've been in the Senate. So it just doesn't have the support. So.
Yeah, it does.
I would like who to lobby to. Who are the prime people that we need to change their mind on?
Pat, I will send you a list of the members who sit on P&E, so you can actually talk to each one of them and see what their views are, and maybe somebody needs to sit down with them and really walk them through the benefits. And
yeah. You know, Pat, in these situations, that you're always better off trying to lobby with a coalition of different advocates. And I don't know if the League of Women Voters, I think they might be active in this. I think it's having the league weigh in, and you using your combining your voice with them, I think is the most effective way to get to them.
Right. And the NPV National group has a Virginia group, Eileen Reeve.
Okay.
So I'm on her list. So yes.
I would reiterate Patrick's comment and also say I think Zoom meetings would be helpful. I mean, we get so many emails, so sitting down and having a Zoom meeting and actually hearing a lawmaker's concerns would be the best.
Okay.
Why don't we let Michael Raisin ask a question now?
Just a quick clarification over districts. Barbara, I think you mentioned that and Patrick might know this too. Are we talking about skipping this year for the getting new districts? Okay, that's probably a given the delay in the data. But then would the House of Delegates have to run in the 2 subsequent years after that? In other words, 3 times in a row?
Yes, Michael, that is what we understand the plan would have to be. Because by the time the plan comes out and the General Assembly adopts it, it will be 2022. And then by law, they have to run in that new district as soon thereafter as there's a general election. So they'll be running in 2022 and then in 2023 in the new district as well.
Yeah, boy, they'll be busy.
They'll be busy.
But I don't think Patrick has a problem.
Well, in the House we run every year anyway, and we're always running. So this happened to be on the ballot an extra
As
time.
you know, fundraisers have to fundraise every year, so we, the donor base of the Arlington delegation, will have to face that every year too.
Well, we may get our wish, but because I've always said that I would love to have these Virginia elections during the federal years. And so, if we do have to run in 2022, I think it would be interesting to see what turnout looks like in a federal year when you've got, all of our House members are Virginia House members, and across the country on the ballot. I think that really does drive turnout, and I happen to think that that's better for democracy anyway.
Good point.
Any other questions, folks? Come on. Erica?
Yeah, so I understand that this year House Bill 2174, the Virginia Saves Plan, did that actually pass? That seems like a pretty big deal to me, where they would work through the Virginia College Savings Plan, 529 plan, to establish automatic enrollment payment payroll deduction for in certain cases for certain individuals. And I just wondered if either Patrick or Barbara wanted to comment on that.
Erica, I think it did. I think it was Delegate Torian, Chairman Torian, that carried that bill in the House, and I do believe it did pass. I don't know the details of it, but to your point, it encourages more people to plan to start saving for their retirement. I can't remember the mechanism. You said it was 529.
It's through the 529 plan, yeah. And I know that it's an opt-out. I think it's an opt-out plan. So they're automatically, if you're in that category that's covered, you're automatically included in. But it's not mandatory. You can opt out.
Right.
Well, I think the bill read for full-time employees working 30 hours or more, and I think if the employer had to have at least 25 employ at least 25 employees, and so for their full-time members, they had to either offer a retirement system or make the 599 available. So, so if the employer had a retirement system, then they could go with that.
Okay, well, that seems
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it seems like a good step ahead to me.
Okay, Stuart, you have a second question?
Yes, this may be more at the county level, but if I understand correctly, the extension service county extension is being cut pretty drastically. And I'm wondering if perhaps this rescue bill that Congress may enact tomorrow if that might help with that problem, or or if you have any comments on problems for the Extension Service.
I thought the Extension Service was funded through the Virginia State University and Virginia Tech as part of their budget.
Yeah.
But you can go ahead and respond, Patrick.
Well, I mean, I don't know specifically because I don't remember how much of that line item that we put into the extensions, which to your point goes through Virginia Tech, I believe. And so I can't comment specifically on how much that was. I don't believe it was cut. I mean, I'm not aware of many areas that were cut. In fact, because we had additional funding, we had more money to spread around. To be fair, I mean, it was targeted mostly towards COVID related and health and human services and housing and that kind of thing. I'd have to look closely at their line item to see if they sustained a cut or they were able to stay flat.
And I think one of the reasons why we don't cut at the state level is that it's a 50-50 match. There's Bankhead Jones funds and so on for the federal government or the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And so the priority at the state level is to meet their matching obligations first and cut those last. So generally cooperative extension and other land grant university funding has done pretty well in the legislature over the past few decades because we want to get those matching federal dollars and maximized.
My 2 cents is I think I would raise the issue with the county board. I don't know if the matching requirement is a burden right now with the county. I am not as familiar with the county's finances, so I know they're doing their budget hearings now, so I would raise that.
All right, the next obscure question. We're playing Stump the Experts here. Who has a really obscure question for our two experts? Don't be bashful. Pat?
Yes, this is my other pet project, and that is medical assistance in dying, MAID, which I am a big supporter of. And I know it got on the back burner this year because of all the other important things. But I do wonder what you think the future of medical assistance in dying is.
Patrick, didn't Delegate Corey have a bill that came before your commission a couple of times?
We did, and we couldn't get a recommendation out of the commission, Pat, just because the makeup of the commission was mostly Republican, and they wanted to make sure nothing got. That was the whole plan all along, is to make sure nothing got out. But I do think that it's a good time to revisit it. I think this is one of those items that we should put on our list to tackle next session. I don't think we need another study. I don't think we need to wait any more time to do that. But because I think we can use the information from the last study and apply it. And so we'll put that on our list of things to tackle. It's not a small issue. It's very controversial, as you know, but I think that we should have the support with the makeup that we have currently in the House and the Senate to get some version through.
I'm very interested in the issue, but I've been reading that California's had some problems getting physicians to even participate in the program. So there will be lots of questions, and we're going to have to get answers. And there have been some on the ground experiences, I think, that will give lawmakers pause, and we're going to have to figure that out.
Oh, I am not aware of any bad experiences at all with it. And I would like to know if you know of some that I don't know of. Right.
Well, maybe we can talk offline. NCSL has given information out that gave me pause about how it was being implemented in California. Now, maybe we can do a better job in Virginia. So.
Right. All right. Well, yes. Barbara, could you just take a minute to summarize and conclude, and then we'll have Patrick summarize and conclude, and then we'll move toward adjournment.
Oh, okay. I just want to say that this has been great. Your questions have been really spot on. We like your values. So it is a pleasure representing you in Richmond. It's always nice to have a close fit with the people you're representing. I will just say that if anybody has any doubt about the importance of elections, these past 2 years should really eradicate that. Elections truly matter. I mean, when the House flipped to Democratic control in the 2020 session, we won the 2019 elections. We started in 2020. I mean, we passed the ratification of the ERA. We did a slew of gun safety bills that 80% of Virginians agreed with. We looked at employment protection, worker protection. We, moved forward on collective bargaining. We started tackling climate change. These issues would not have been addressed without a Democratic majority. And I know that I've gotten a couple climate change bills through, and the Sierra Club just gave me an award. I had been trying for several years to get climate change legislation through, and that didn't happen. And also we're willing to, Democrats are willing to make government work. And, a lot of the social safety net programs, were not working because they weren't designed to work. And they weren't really helping people because, we had these criteria in there that were barriers. And we were able to change that. And a lot of our programs now are working better and people are succeeding. And the last thing I will just say is I just enjoy being part of a party of hope. A party that wants to get to yes, a party that is providing an opportunity. The governor passed a bill, his G3 program. I think I've spoken about this before, but individuals who want to go to a community college, are in good standing, can go full time, they really can't afford to go. But if they want to go into a STEM related track, we can give them that opportunity at no cost to them. And this is not, it's not an income test, it's an opportunity. And we've got 40,000 jobs, even in the pandemic, that are still unfilled in Northern Virginia because we don't have homegrown talent that can do the sort of STEM related tracks. So, to be able to offer that opportunity to folks who are really, really, really striving to succeed, I think is a win-win. It's a win-win for everybody. So that's my 2 cents. It's an honor and a pleasure to be part of a party of hope. So I hope that we can continue to work together, and we will, as Patrick said, we'll bring Arlington values to Virginia.
To Richmond.
Senator Favola, I've always been a party of hope. That's just but anyway, I can't underscore what Senator Favola said. I mean, and I'm going to want to repeat this. Think back of the consequential nature and transformative things that we've been able to accomplish this last year and a half. And there's so much more to do. When you look at the infrastructure, I mean, my gosh, we have schools in the state that are more than 100 years old. And you think about some of the disparities that we have both in the urban areas and inner cities, but also in the rural parts of the state, whether it's broadband or having opportunities for people to get jobs and move away from an economy like coal, for example, and invest in new resources like the clean economy. And so there's some infrastructure changes, a real long list of things that we need to invest in. But there's also this human services aspect as well, too, that has been underfunded for so many years. And I'm thinking specifically about nursing homes and assisted living. There's a lot more that we can accomplish in the future, and I think that we're unified. I think the state is unified in the direction that we're going. We're sitting watching these polls very closely in the House, and it's clearly everyone thinks that the majority of Virginians believe that we're going in the right direction. And so we want to continue to push these things. And I think I think that we deserve another chance to get an opportunity to build on our successes and look forward to doing that. And I just so appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you. I mean, I know in my first 10 years in office, I'd come back and I was all depressed and You were the ones that made me feel like I wasn't going crazy going down there, because it really was, as Senator Favola stated, bringing Arlington values to the rest of the state. And so I so thank you for giving me this honor and privilege to serve you, and look forward to continuing to do so. And thanks for the opportunity to share our vision and some of our accomplishments from this session and beyond.
Well, we want to thank you both for your fine work in Richmond and also sharing your time with us. And you're always welcome to come back. We love hearing from our delegation. That will conclude our lunch. Our next meeting is the second Tuesday in April, and I hope again to get the school board candidates and perhaps a couple of more statewide candidates for the Democratic nomination. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you,